The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched 300 meters across, its ceiling lost in artificial clouds that drifted through projected starfields. 14 species held seats in the circular assembly, arranged in tiers that made the hierarchy painfully clear. At the top sat the 3 prime seats occupied by the Vrin hegemony, the Tal Collective, and the Genkar Empire. Far below them, almost at floor level, Director Chen Zhao sat in Earth's modest chair. She had been making this presentation for 3 hours. Her voice remained steady despite the growing certainty that she was wasting her breath. The holographic display showed Earth's achievements over the past 7 decades of Council membership. New agricultural techniques, medical advances, peaceful expansion into 12 colony worlds, a spotless record of treaty compliance. Humanity requests elevation to Tier 2 status, Zhao concluded. We also formally petition for mining rights in the Kepler Belt territories, as outlined in Section 47 of the Expansion Protocols. The Vrin representative didn't even stand. His translator rendered his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. Denied. Humanity's resource efficiency remains at 0.73 standard units. Your species consumes more than it produces. Evolution will correct this or you will fade. That is the way of the cosmos. Zhao kept her expression neutral. 7 decades of negotiations had taught her that much. With respect, Hegemon, our efficiency ratings are calculated using outdated baseline metrics from our first contact period. Our current industrial output has increased by— The Council has reviewed your petition, the tall speaker interrupted. Her blue skin rippled with what might have been amusement. The vote is unanimous. Humanity will remain at Tier 4. This session is concluded. Zhao gathered her materials with practiced calm. She had expected rejection. She had not expected the looks exchanged between the prime seat members, the subtle gesture the Vrin hegemon made to his aides. In 70 years of diplomatic service, she had learned to read the unspoken languages of a dozen species. Something was very wrong. Her suspicions were confirmed 6 hours later. Zhao's personal aide, Lieutenant Marcus Chen, burst into her office aboard the Earth diplomatic station without knocking. His face was pale. Director, we're receiving emergency signals from the outer reaches. Multiple distress calls. New Perth Colony, Valdez Station, and Horizon's End are under attack. Zhao was moving before he finished speaking. Attack? By whom? Vrin warships, ma'am. 3 battle groups. They're not responding to hails. They're just— He stopped, swallowing hard. They're glassing the colonies. Orbital bombardment, everything. The communications center was chaos. Screens showed feeds from the colonies, though most were already going dark. Zhao watched in horror as Vrin energy weapons turned the sky above New Perth into a sheet of flame. The colony housed 600,000 people. Families, children, scientists and farmers and teachers who had traveled light years to build new homes. The bombardment lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 3 human colony worlds were dead. 2 million people had been murdered. Earth's government demanded answers. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Zhao attended, though every instinct screamed at her to return home. She needed to understand what had happened, why it had happened. The council chamber felt different now, colder. The other species wouldn't meet her eyes. The session began with the Vrin hegemon standing to address the assembly. The Vrin hegemony has executed a lawful military response to illegal colonial expansion, he announced. Human settlements in the Kepler territories violated Council territorial agreements. We issued warnings. They were ignored. We acted. Zhao was on her feet. That's a lie. Those colonies were established 70 years ago, with full Council approval. We have the signed treaties. Outdated documentation, the tall speaker said smoothly. The territories were reclassified under Council Resolution 779, passed 6 months ago. Your species was notified through proper channels. We received no such notification. The Genkar ambassador spoke for the first time, his voice like grinding stone. Ignorance of law is not innocence. The Council votes now on sanctions against Earth for illegal expansion and resource theft. Zhao looked around the chamber. Not one species would meet her gaze. They had known. All of them had known this was coming. The vote was swift. 13 species voted to sanction Earth. Only humanity's own vote stood against it. That night, Zhao accessed her personal intelligence network. Every ambassador maintained unofficial channels, relationships built over years of shared meals and quiet conversations. She called in every favor she had. The truth was worse than she had imagined. The attack had been planned for months. The Council had voted in secret to reclassify the Kepler territories, creating a legal justification for the Vryn assault. The goal was simple: test humanity's response. If humans fought back, the entire Council would crush them. If humans submitted, they would be stripped of their colonies and reduced to a client state of the Vryn. It was not the first time the Council had done this. Zhao found records of 4 other species who had faced similar tests. 2 had fought and been destroyed. 2 had submitted and now served as little more than slaves, their homeworlds controlled by Council overseers. Zhao sent everything to Earth in an encrypted transmission. Then she began recalling every human citizen from Council space: diplomats, merchants, students, scientists on exchange programs. She gave them 12 hours to reach human ships. The Council noticed. The tall speaker contacted her directly. "Director Zhao, these recalls are premature. There is room for negotiation, is there?" Zhao asked. "Can you negotiate with the 2 million dead? Can you bring them back?" "Regrettable losses," the tall said. "But the Council maintains order across 10,000 systems. Sometimes examples must be made." Zhao ended the transmission. On Earth, the news of the attack had reached every corner of the planet. The images from the colonies played on every screen. The names of the dead scrolled endlessly. The anger was unlike anything in living memory. Not the hot rage of passion, but something colder. Something calculating. Admiral Kira Obaseki stood in the war room beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays of human military assets. The Joint Chiefs watched her, waiting. She had served 40 years in the Defense Fleet, rising through the ranks during the long peace of Council membership. "Recommendations?" the Secretary General asked. "We activate Pandora Protocol," Obaseki said simply. The room went silent. Pandora was a myth to most people. A contingency plan developed in the early years of First Contact, when humanity didn't know if the aliens would be friends or conquerors. Over the decades, as the Council seemed stable and peaceful, the protocol had faded from active planning, but it had never been abandoned. "The Council believes we have 47 capital ships," Obaseki continued. "Our registered fleet matches our treaty obligations. They think they understand our industrial capacity based on our reported output." She smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "They are wrong about everything." Deep in the Kuiper Belt, in hidden shipyards that had been built over 50 years, automated systems received activation codes. In the Oort cloud, weapon platforms came online. Throughout the solar system, listening posts began broadcasting on frequencies the Council had never detected. Earth's real fleet began to wake up. Director Zhao sent one final message to the Galactic Council. It was brief. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will have no further communication. Consider this our notice." Then Earth went silent. Every human ship disappeared from Council space. Every communication channel went dark. The Council's intelligence services lost track of every human military vessel. 30 days passed. The Galactic Council, confident in their superiority, began dividing the human colonies among themselves. They would soon learn the cost of that confidence. The silence from Earth was deafening. For 30 days, the Galactic Council received no communication from humanity. No pleas for mercy, no desperate negotiations, no threats of retaliation, nothing. Chancellor Thex found the silence unsettling. He had served on the Council for 200 years and had witnessed 3 other species face similar tests. All of them had responded within days, either with military action or with delegation. This absolute quiet was unprecedented. "They are gathering their courage," the Vryn hegemon said during a private meeting of the prime seats. "Preparing to beg. Humans are emotional creatures. They need time to process defeat." The tall representative was less certain. "Our intelligence networks have lost track of their fleet. Every human vessel has disappeared from our sensors. That requires coordination and planning. They are hiding," the Vryn said dismissively. "Let them hide. We know where their home world is. When they realize they cannot escape consequences, they will emerge." The Council moved forward with partitioning human territories. The Vryn claimed the richest mining systems. The Tal took 3 agricultural worlds. Smaller species divided the rest among themselves. On paper, humanity's colonial empire ceased to exist, but something was happening that the Council could not see. Admiral Obaseki stood in the command center of the Tycho station, watching data streams from across the solar system. The activation of Pandora Protocol had been flawless. 50 years of preparation were paying off. Status report, she ordered. Commander Sarah Martinez pulled up holographic displays.
All assets are online.
The Kuiper shipyards have completed final assembly on the fleet. We have 371 capital ships ready for deployment, not counting the support vessels and drone carriers. 371, Obaseki repeated. The Council thinks we have 47. They think we're primitives playing with their hand-me-down technology, Martinez said with a grim smile. They have no idea we've been reverse engineering and improving everything they ever sold us. That was the beautiful irony of it all. For 70 years, the Council had sold humanity their outdated technology at premium prices, believing humans were too primitive to understand the advanced principles. They had been right about one thing. Humans didn't fully understand the alien technology at first. But humanity had done what it always did when faced with something new. They studied it, broke it down, figured out how it worked, then made it better. The quantum drive that Tal had sold Earth 30 years ago, human engineers had improved its efficiency by 40% and reduced its power requirements by half. The energy weapons the Genkar had licensed? Humanity had developed versions that were smaller, more accurate, and could be powered by Earth's fusion technology. And then, there were the innovations the Council knew nothing about. Humanity's AI research had been carefully hidden, disguised as entertainment software and civilian automation. But the combat AI systems installed in every human warship were more sophisticated than anything in Council space. Swarm warfare doctrines developed from studying everything from wolf packs to ant colonies, psychological warfare techniques refined through thousands of years of human conflict. The Council had assumed that because humans seemed peaceful, they were not warriors. They had forgotten to study human history. Dr. Amara Singh entered the command center carrying a datapad. She was the architect of Pandora Protocol, a woman who had dedicated her life to preparing for a war she hoped would never come. Admiral, the intelligence analysis is complete, she said. We've identified every major military installation in Vryn space, every shipyard, every command center, every communication relay. We've been mapping their networks for 50 years. We know their systems better than they do. And the Tal, the Genkar, full intelligence packages on all Council species. We know their fleet compositions, their tactical doctrines, their supply lines. We know which systems are critical infrastructure and which are symbolic targets. We know everything. Obaseki nodded slowly. The Secretary General has authorized Operation Retribution. We strike in 48 hours. The meeting of the War Council was brief. Obaseki laid out the plan with clinical precision. We will hit 17 systems simultaneously. The primary target is the Vryn home system. We will destroy their military capacity completely. For the other Council species, we target military infrastructure only. We need them to understand that we can reach them anywhere, but we're not interested in genocide, just justice. What about civilian casualties? Asked General Thompson. We avoid them wherever possible, Obaseki said firmly. This is not revenge. This is retribution. We're not the villains in this story. We're making sure the real villains can never hurt anyone again. The plan was audacious. The Council had thousands of systems, billions of citizens, fleets that numbered in the tens of thousands. Humanity had 300 ships and a population of 12 billion, scattered across a dozen worlds. But humanity had advantages the Council didn't understand. Every human ship was equipped with quantum tunnel drives, a technology humanity had developed independently by combining Council physics with human theoretical mathematics. It allowed instantaneous travel across vast distances, something the Council considered impossible. Every ship had full AI integration, allowing reaction times measured in microseconds. Every weapon system had been tested and refined through millions of simulated combat scenarios. Every crew member had trained for this possibility since the day they enlisted. Humanity had spent 70 years preparing for this war while the Council had spent those same years growing complacent. Sui. The 31st day of Earth's silence, the Galactic Council held a session to formally announce the partition of human territories. Chancellor Thex was reading the proclamation when every screen in the chamber went dark. Then they lit up again with a single image. Director Chen Zhao, standing in what appeared to be a military command center. "People of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice calm and cold. 30 days ago, your leadership murdered 2 million human beings. Men, women, and children who had committed no crime except existing in space you suddenly decided you wanted. You then voted to justify that murder, to make it legal under your laws. The council chamber was silent. This was being broadcast on every communication channel, every frequency. Billions of beings across council space were watching. Humanity came to the stars seeking peace, Zhao continued. We followed your rules. We honored your treaties. We believed in the promise of the Galactic Council. You taught us a valuable lesson. You taught us that power respects only power, that justice must be taken, not requested, that peace is only possible when the cost of war is too high to contemplate. She paused, and something dangerous flickered in her eyes. Today, humanity teaches you a lesson in return. We teach you what happens when you murder our children. We teach you what it means to wake a sleeping predator. We teach you that Earth remembers and Earth does not forgive. The transmission ended. For a moment, the council chamber remained silent. Then the alarms began. Reports flooded in from across council space. Human fleets had appeared without warning in 17 systems. They hadn't traveled through normal space. They hadn't used jump gates. They had simply appeared as if the laws of physics meant nothing. The largest fleet had emerged in the Vrin home system. 150 human warships materialized inside the Vrin defensive perimeter, bypassing every sensor, every early warning system, every defensive station. The Vrin fleet scrambled to respond. They outnumbered the human ships 3-1. They had bigger vessels, more firepower, heavier armor. It didn't matter. The human ships moved like living things, coordinating with inhuman precision. Their weapons found weak points with impossible accuracy. Drone swarms obscured Vrin sensors while human AI systems tracked every enemy vessel simultaneously. Within the first hour, the Vrin had lost a third of their fleet. Within 3 hours, half their orbital infrastructure was destroyed. Within 6 hours, their military was shattered. Their shipyards burning, their proud fleet reduced to scattered survivors fleeing into deep space. And through it all, not a single civilian target was hit. Every strike was surgical, precise, calculated. The humans were not rampaging monsters. They were executioners, eliminating threats with cold efficiency. The Vrin hegemon tried to escape aboard his personal flagship. A human strike team, led by Commander Marcus Drake, boarded the vessel. The fighting was brief and brutal. The hegemon, who had ordered the death of millions with a casual gesture, was captured alive. His pleas for mercy were broadcast across every communication channel in council space. In the council chamber, Chancellor Thex watched the reports with growing horror. Across 17 systems, human forces were dismantling military infrastructure with terrifying efficiency. The species that humanity had seemed weak and primitive were revealing themselves as sophisticated, ruthless, and utterly prepared. Send the peace delegation, the tall speaker said urgently. Offer negotiations. Offer reparations. But when they tried to contact Earth, they received only silence. The hammer had fallen, and it was still falling. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, but the reality spread faster through quantum communication networks. In less than a standard day, every species in council space knew the same impossible truth. Humanity was winning. Commander Marcus Drake stood on the bridge of his ship, the strike carrier Retribution, watching the holographic display of the Vrin home system. Debris from destroyed warships drifted through space like scattered leaves. Orbital stations burned in silent fury. The proud military that had murdered 2 million humans was now fleeing in every direction. Target the command station, Drake ordered. Disable only. We need their leadership alive. The weapons officer nodded. Drake had handpicked his crew from soldiers who had lost family in the colony attacks. Every person on this ship had a personal reason to hate the Vrin, but they followed orders. They stayed disciplined. That was the difference between justice and genocide. The Vrin command station took fire from 3 angles. Precisely calibrated energy weapons disabled its shields, its weapons, its engines. A boarding pod launched from the Retribution, carrying Drake and 15 Marines. They cut through the station's hull and poured inside. The Vrin soldiers tried to fight. They were brave, Drake gave them that. But they were not prepared for humans in combat armor, moving with enhanced reflexes. Thinking with tactical precision honed by lifetimes of warfare, the fight lasted 12 minutes. Drake found the Vryn hegemon in what appeared to be a command center, surrounded by his remaining guards. The alien looked different when cornered. Smaller somehow. Less arrogant. "You cannot do this," the hegemon said through his translator. The council is watching us do this right now," Drake interrupted. "You want to know the difference between us? When we had the power to kill your civilians, we chose not to. When you had that power, you murdered children." He signaled his Marines. "Take him." He faces trial for war crimes. The hegemon's pleas for mercy were broadcast on every frequency. Drake made sure of that. He wanted every species in the council to hear what their leader sounded like when he begged. Across the galaxy, similar operations unfolded with mechanical precision. Human fleets appeared in 12 other council systems, targeting military installations with surgical accuracy. Command centers, shipyards, weapons platforms, supply depots. Every strike was calculated, every target verified to minimize civilian casualties. The Tall Collective tried to organize a coordinated defense. Their military commanders were competent, experienced officers who had served in dozens of conflicts. They assembled a fleet of 2,000 vessels at the barrier rift, a strategic choke point that any attacking force would have to pass through. Admiral Obaseki reviewed the intelligence reports and smiled. The Tall thought in terms of conventional warfare. They couldn't imagine alternatives. "Execute Operation Sunfall," she ordered. The human fleet did not approach the barrier rift. Instead, a single stealth ship, no larger than a shuttle, entered the system where the Tall fleet waited. The ship deployed a device near a neutron star that marked the edge of the system. The device was smaller than a person, barely visible against the cosmic background. It activated. The neutron star's magnetic field was disrupted in a cascading reaction that took 3 hours to build. By the time the Tall sensors detected the anomaly, it was too late. A beam of concentrated radiation, channeled and amplified by human technology, swept across the system. Every Tall ship lost power simultaneously. Their shields collapsed. Their weapons went offline. Their life support systems struggled to compensate. The beam was not designed to kill but to disable. Every vessel was rendered helpless in an instant. Human ships appeared then, moving through the field of drifting warships like sharks among fish. They attached control devices to each Tall vessel, taking control of their systems. 2,000 ships captured without firing a single shot. The commander of the Tall fleet sent a message to his superiors that was intercepted and broadcast by human intelligence. They weaponized a star. They turned stellar physics into a tactical tool. These humans are not soldiers. They are something else entirely. The message was heard across the galaxy. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive suddenly understood the terrible truth. Humans had been studying the universe while the Council had grown complacent. Every branch of science, every field of knowledge had been explored with one question in mind. How can this be used to protect humanity? And when humanity finally went to war, they brought innovations that the Council could not comprehend. In the Council chamber, Chancellor Thex watched the reports with mounting horror. The Vryn military was destroyed. The Tall fleet was captured. Smaller species were capitulating, offering intelligence on Council operations in exchange for mercy. The carefully constructed power structure that had maintained order for centuries was collapsing in a matter of days. "We must negotiate," the Genkar ambassador said. His stone-like features showed no emotion, but his voice carried urgency. This was meant to be a simple police action, a reminder to an upstart species. How did it become this? They were prepared, the Tall speaker said quietly. Her blue skin had paled to almost white. They have been preparing since first contact. While we thought we were selling them outdated technology, they were learning our secrets. While we thought they were weak, they were building a hidden fleet. We assumed peace meant weakness. We forgot that the most dangerous predator is the one that chooses not to hunt. Then we offer peace, Thex said. We offer reparations. We offer anything they want. We tried, one of his aides said. They will not respond to our communications. They ignore every message. On Earth, Director Chen Zhao stood in a situation room with Admiral Obaseki and Dr. Singh. They reviewed the battle reports, the casualty lists, the tactical assessments. Zhao felt tired in a way that sleep could never fix. She had spent her life pursuing peace, and now she was coordinating a war. The Council is trying to negotiate, Dr. Singh reported. 37 separate messages in the last 6 hours. Ignore them, Obaseki said flatly. They had their chance for peace. They chose murder instead. Now they learn what comes after. Admiral, they are requesting terms of surrender, Zhao said carefully. Multiple species are offering unconditional no. Obaseki's voice was cold. We told them we would have no further communication. We meant it. They will receive our terms when we choose to give them, not before. Right now, they are learning what fear feels like, what helplessness feels like, what it is to wait in terror for an attack that might come at any moment. Our colonies experienced that for 4 hours. The Council can experience it for as long as we decide. Zhao wanted to argue, but she found she could not. 2 million dead. 2 million voices silenced. The Council had done it casually, as a test, as a lesson. They had expected humanity to either roll over in submission or lash out recklessly and be destroyed. Instead, humanity had shown them something they had never seen before. Calculated, precise, unstoppable retribution. What about the Citadel? Zhao asked. The Council Citadel was the political heart of galactic civilization, a massive station where the bureaucracy of 10,000 worlds was managed. We have a team ready, Obaseki said. Commander Drake has volunteered to lead the strike. Drake's team consisted of 50 operators, the best of humanity's special forces. They approached the Citadel in stealth ships, invisible to Council sensors. The station was massive, home to 10 million bureaucrats, diplomats, and support staff from across the galaxy. It was also protected by 15,000 security personnel and a fleet of guard ships. The security meant nothing. Human hackers using AI-assisted systems had spent weeks infiltrating the Citadel's networks. When Drake's team made their approach, every security system failed simultaneously. Cameras went offline. Automated defenses powered down. Communication systems restricted themselves to approved channels only. Drake's team entered through a cargo bay, moving through corridors that should have been crowded with guards. They encountered minimal resistance. The few security forces that did respond found themselves facing soldiers who moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Within 4 hours, Drake's team had reached the Central Archives, the repository of every Council decision, every treaty, every secret deal made over centuries. They locked down the section, cutting it off from the rest of the station. Then they began downloading everything. The secrets they found were staggering. Records of other species who had faced the same test as humanity. Evidence of corruption at every level of Council government. Proof of countless crimes committed in the name of maintaining order. Documents showing how the Council manipulated smaller species, using them as resources to enrich the Prime Seat members. Drake transmitted all of it, broadcasting the evidence across every communication network in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the truth of their government was revealed. The Council had not been maintaining peace and order. They had been running a protection racket on a galactic scale. Secure the prisoners, Drake ordered. His team was already rounding up Council leadership. These beings had voted to justify the murder of millions. Now they would face justice for it. The files from the Council archives spread across Director Zhao's display like a disease. She read through them with growing fury, her hands trembling. Dr. Singh sat beside her, equally pale. Admiral Obaseki stood behind them, her face carved from stone. They have done this 47 times, Zhao said quietly. 47 species tested in the last 2,000 years. 15 submitted and became client states. 11 fought back and were completely destroyed. Their worlds are still quarantined zones, deliberately kept uninhabitable as examples. 21, including humanity, are still being evaluated. It's not just a test, Singh said, scrolling through another document. It's a system. They identify species with potential to threaten Council dominance. They manufacture a crisis to justify military action. If the species submits, they are slowly absorbed and stripped of independence. If they fight, they are eliminated. Either way, the Council maintains absolute control. The Kepler territories, Obaseki said. They were never reclassified because of resource concerns. They picked that location specifically because those 3 colonies were isolated. Easy targets. The attack was designed to kill enough people to provoke a response, but not so many that other species would question the Council's actions. Zhao pulled up another file. They had projections, statistical models. They estimated humanity had a 73% chance of submitting, a 22% chance of fighting back and being destroyed, and a 5% chance of mounting an effective resistance. They considered those acceptable odds. They missed one possibility, Obaseki said with cold satisfaction. Complete and total victory by the species they attacked. The evidence was damning. Zhao authorized its release to every major news network in Council space. Within hours, the galaxy was in uproar. Species that had been client states for centuries suddenly understood they had been conquered, not integrated. Civilizations that had heard stories of extinct species now knew those extinctions were murder, not natural selection. 4 minor species immediately sent delegations to Earth, requesting protection and offering to testify against the Council. Then 8 more. Then 20. The political structure that had seemed eternal was fracturing like glass under a hammer. In the Council chamber, Chancellor Thex faced a near-empty room. Half the member species had recalled their representatives. The others sat in stunned silence, watching their civilization collapse on every screen around them. "We must stop this," the tail speaker said. "We must negotiate before humanity destroys everything." "They are not interested in destruction," the Genkar ambassador observed. "Look at their targets. Military only. Infrastructure that supports war. They are dismantling our capacity to threaten them, but they are not killing civilians. They are not glassing worlds. They could, but they choose not to." "Then what do they want?" Thex demanded. The answer came in the form of a transmission. Director Chen Zhao appeared on every screen in the chamber. She was no longer in a military command center. She stood in the Council Citadel itself, in a room they all recognized as the Chancellor's private office. "People of the Galactic Council," she began. "My name is Chen Zhao. I was Earth's ambassador to your government for 37 years. I believed in the Council. I believed in the promise of peaceful cooperation among species. I was wrong." She gestured and holographic displays appeared around her, showing documents from the archives. "Your government is not a council. It is a regime. For thousands of years you have maintained power through fear, manipulation, and murder. You test species to see if they will submit or fight. You eliminate those who resist. You enslave those who surrender. This is not civilization. This is tyranny." Zhao's expression hardened. "Humanity was meant to be your 47th test. You murdered 2 million of our people to provoke a response. You expected us to either beg for mercy or lash out foolishly and be destroyed. You did not expect us to be ready. You did not expect us to be strong. You did not expect us to win." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. 97 days ago you killed our children. Today your military is shattered. Your fleets are captured or destroyed. Your leadership is in custody. Your crimes are exposed for all to see. Humanity has achieved complete military victory. But victory is not our goal. Justice is our goal. And justice requires more than defeating you. It requires making sure you can never do this again. The transmission cut to footage of human forces throughout Council space. Marines guarding captured installations. Ships patrolling former Council territories. Operators securing weapons facilities. The message was clear. Humanity controlled the galaxy's military infrastructure now. "These are our terms," Zhao said. "The Galactic Council is dissolved effective immediately. All member species are released from all treaties and obligations. Council leadership will face trial for war crimes, to be held on Geneva Station under human jurisdiction. Any species that wishes to participate in these trials is welcome. In place of the Council, humanity proposes the Galactic Federation. A new government based on equality, transparency, and mutual defense. Every species will have an equal vote. All decisions will be public. All member worlds will have the right to self-determination. And most importantly, the use of military force will require unanimous consent of all members." She looked directly at the camera. "Humanity does not seek to rule the galaxy. We seek to ensure that no one rules the galaxy through fear and violence. Join us in building something better, or stand aside and watch us build it anyway. But know this, the age of the Council is over. The question now is what comes next." The transmission ended. In the Council chamber, the remaining representatives sat in stunned silence. Their government had just been dismantled in a public broadcast. Their authority had evaporated, and the species they had dismissed as primitive had just restructured galactic civilization in under 2 minutes. "We need to discuss this," Thek said weakly. There is nothing to discuss, the Genkar ambassador said. We lost. Completely, absolutely. The only question is whether we accept their terms or face continued war. And I, for one, have seen enough of human warfare to know we cannot win. He stood and bowed slightly toward the empty air, as if Zhao could still see him. The Genkar Empire accepts Earth's terms. We will send representatives to the Federation. One by one, the other species did the same. Some did it eagerly, seeing liberation in the Council's fall. Some did it reluctantly, recognizing they had no other choice. But within 6 hours, 29 species had accepted the terms. The Vryn hegemony was not among them. Their government, what remained of it, issued a defiant statement rejecting the Federation and calling for continued resistance. Admiral Obaseki read the statement and issued orders. Human forces blockaded every Vryn system. No ships in, no ships out. No communication with the outside galaxy. The Vryn wanted to stand alone. They would stand alone, isolated and helpless until they changed their minds or their own people changed their government. It took 11 days. The Vryn military, what little remained, staged a coup. They arrested their own leadership and sent a message to Earth. They accepted the terms. The trials began on Geneva Station 3 months later. It was the largest war crimes tribunal in galactic history. 53 individuals faced charges ranging from conspiracy to commit genocide to crimes against sentient beings. The evidence was overwhelming, gathered from the Council's own archives. Director Zhao served as the chief prosecutor. She presented each case with calm precision, laying out the evidence, calling witnesses, showing the galaxy exactly what their leaders had done. Species that had thought themselves civilized watched in horror as the truth emerged. The Vryn hegemon was the first to be convicted. He faced 27 counts of genocide, including the attack on human colonies. The judges, drawn from 17 different species, deliberated for 2 hours. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The hegemon was sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony, along with strict monitoring to ensure he could never hold power again. It was not the death penalty many humans wanted. But Zhao had argued successfully that humanity needed to show it was better than the Council. Justice, not revenge. 12 other Council leaders faced similar verdicts. Some were sentenced to imprisonment. Some were stripped of citizenship and exiled. None escaped consequences. But the trials were about more than punishment. They were about establishing a new standard. The galaxy watched as humans demonstrated that power did not mean immunity, that leadership required responsibility, that justice applied to everyone. 5 years later, Director Chen Zhao stood in the assembly chamber of the new Galactic Federation. The room was designed differently from the old Council chamber. No tiers, no hierarchy. Every species had an equal seat around a circular table. 37 species were represented now, with more applying for membership every month. The Federation was not perfect. There were arguments, disagreements, competing interests, but they resolved them through debate and vote, not through threats and violence. Zhao had been elected chancellor by unanimous vote. It was not a position she wanted, but it was one she accepted. Someone had to guide the transition from the old order to the new. Admiral Obaseki had retired after the war, though she maintained an advisory role. 10 years after the war, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Federation governed 49 member species across 12,000 settled systems. Trade flourished under transparent regulations. Scientific cooperation led to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Small conflicts still arose, but they were resolved through mediation and diplomacy, not military force. But the memory of what humanity had done remained. It was whispered in military academies, analyzed in strategic studies, and taught as a cautionary tale in every corner of civilized space. Professor Kethrel stood before a lecture hall full of young officers from 24 different species. He was Genkar, old enough to remember the Council days, and he taught military history at the Federation War College on Mars. His students listened with rapt attention as he began his lecture. The question you must answer today is this: how did humanity, a species with 12 billion people and a dozen colony worlds, defeat a council that governed trillions across 10,000 systems? What made it possible? A young Vryn officer, part of the new generation raised under the Federation, raised his hand. Superior technology? A factor, Kethrall acknowledged. But not the deciding one. The Council had technology too. Some of it was even more advanced than humanity's. Next, better tactics? Suggested a tall student, closer. Humanity's tactical flexibility was remarkable. Their combat doctrine was unlike anything the Council had encountered. But tactics alone do not win wars of this scale. Think deeper. Inhuman student spoke up. Preparation. We spent 70 years getting ready. Kethrall nodded. Now we approach the truth. Humanity prepared. But for what? And why? He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. When humanity encountered the Council, they had just emerged from their worst global conflict. A war that had killed hundreds of millions. They understood the cost of being unprepared. So they asked themselves a question. What if the aliens are hostile? What if first contact leads to war? The display showed the early years of human-council relations. Ships being bought, technology being licensed, diplomatic missions established. On the surface, humanity seemed eager to join the galactic community. They followed every rule. They honored every treaty. They appeared weak, eager to please, desperate for acceptance. The Council saw exactly what they expected to see. A primitive species grateful for the opportunity to learn from their betters. Kethrall smiled grimly. The Council did not see what was happening in the shadows. Every ship humanity bought was immediately torn apart and analyzed. Every piece of technology was studied, reverse-engineered, and improved. Every diplomatic mission was also an intelligence-gathering operation. For 70 years, humanity played the role of grateful students while preparing for the possibility of war. But why? Asked a student from the Tal Collective. If they wanted peace, why prepare for war? Because they understood something the Council had forgotten, Kethrall said. That peace is not a natural state. It must be protected, maintained, and sometimes it must be fought for. The old Earth saying was this: if you want peace, prepare for war. He changed the display to show the Pandora Protocol documents, declassified after the war. Look at this. A contingency plan developed within 5 years of first contact. Hidden shipyards in the outer solar system. Secret research programs. Intelligence networks planted throughout Council space. All of it developed while humanity smiled and nodded and pretended to be harmless. That seems dishonest, the Vryn student said. Does it? Kethrall asked. Your own people proved humanity's caution was justified. The Vryn hegemony murdered 2 million human civilians as a test that had been conducted 46 times before on other species. Was humanity wrong to prepare for that possibility? The student had no answer. Kethrall continued. The war itself lasted 97 days. In that time, humanity achieved complete military victory. But the war was not won in those 97 days. It was won in the 70 years of preparation that came before. Every human ship was designed with lessons learned from studying Council weaknesses. Every weapon system was built to counter specific Council defenses. Every strategy was developed with perfect intelligence on enemy capabilities. When the Council tested humanity, they thought they were testing a species with 47 capital ships and limited industrial capacity. They were wrong on both counts. Humanity had 371 capital ships and an industrial base that had been quietly expanding for decades. The Council based their assessment on registered ships and reported output. They never considered that humanity might be lying. A human student raised her hand. Professor, isn't that against Federation principles? Transparency and honesty? Kethrall's expression softened. An excellent question. Yes, it is. And that is why the Federation exists. Humanity learned a terrible lesson from the Council, that predators exist in the galaxy, and sometimes prey must become predators to survive. But humanity also learned that survival without principles is not worth achieving. After the war, humanity could have ruled the galaxy. They had the military power. They had the moral authority. Every species would have accepted human dominance after seeing what they could do. Instead, they created the Federation, equal representation, transparent governance, unanimous consent for military action. They built a system where no species would ever need to hide their strength again, because no species would be tested like humanity was tested. The lecture hall was silent. Kethrall let the moment stretch, then continued. I was a junior officer in the Genkar fleet during the war. I was aboard one of the ships at the Barrier Rift when humanity weaponized the neutron star. I watched 2,000 vessels lose power simultaneously. I thought we were all going to die, but we did not die. Humans boarded our ships, took control of our systems, and captured us without firing a shot. They could have destroyed us. It would have been easier. But they chose the harder path because it was the right path. That is the final lesson of the war. Power is not just about destroying your enemies. It is about choosing what kind of civilization you want to build. After the lecture, a group of students approached Kethral with more questions. Among them was Vrix, the young Vrin officer whose grandfather had been a ship commander during the attack on human colonies. "Professor," Vrix said quietly, "my grandfather was executed for war crimes. He ordered the bombardment of New Perth. 500,000 civilians died because of his decision." Kethral waited, sensing there was more. "I have studied the trial transcripts, the evidence. Everything he did." Vrix looked uncomfortable. He believed he was following orders, that he was serving the hegemony. He never questioned whether those orders were moral. He just obeyed. "And what do you learn from that?" Kethral asked. "That obedience without conscience is not honor, that following orders does not absolve responsibility, that every soldier must ask themselves whether their actions serve justice or simply serve power." Vrix met the professor's eyes. "I joined the Federation peacekeeping fleet because I want to serve justice. I want to make sure what my grandfather did never happens again." Kethral nodded slowly. "Then you have learned the most important lesson. The war was not just about military victory. It was about forcing the entire galaxy to ask questions we had stopped asking. Questions about right and wrong, about justice and power, about what kind of civilization we want to be." Elsewhere in the solar system, on Geneva Station, the war crimes trials had finally concluded. The last defendants had been sentenced. The last testimonies had been heard. Director Chen Zhao stood in the empty courtroom, looking at the monument that had been erected outside. 2 million names. Carved in black stone, each one a life lost, a future stolen, a family destroyed. Marcus Drake joined her, his uniform bearing the insignia of Fleet Admiral now. He had continued serving after the war, training the next generation of Federation officers. "Still think we did the right thing?" he asked quietly. Zhao considered the question. "We did the necessary thing. Whether it was right is for history to judge." "The Federation is holding," Drake said, 49 species, more applying for membership every year. "The peace has lasted a decade, because they remember the war," Zhao said. "They remember what humanity did when pushed. That fear maintains the peace. Not just fear," Drake argued. "Respect, understanding, they see what we built. The Federation is not perfect, but it is better than what came before." Zhao touched one of the names on the monument. Sarah Chen, age 7, killed at New Perth. No relation, but Zhao had read every name, every biography. She had made herself remember that the 2 million were not statistics. They were people. "We killed thousands in the war," she said. "Enemy soldiers, yes, but still lives ended because of our decisions. We shattered fleets, destroyed installations, toppled governments. We did it all in the name of justice, but the blood is still on our hands." "Would you have done it differently?" Drake asked. "No," Zhao admitted. "That is what haunts me. Given the same circumstances, the same information, the same choices, I would do it all again exactly the same way. Because the alternative was to let the Council continue murdering species that dared to be strong. But knowing something is necessary does not make it easy to live with."